friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello, hi, how are you? So today's video, I'm really excited about this video. I actually had a couple other ideas planned for today, but then I was like, no, this is a good idea. I want to rant a little bit today about stuff that doesn't matter, especially after the week I've had. So today we're going to be ranting about stuff that in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter, but then I think is fun to talk about. So today I want to talk about some of the worst makeup collaborations that have ever come out. And basically I want to talk about collaborations with entities like brands or movies or things like that. And also collaborations with like influencers or celebrities, things like that. Just kind of the ones that I think are some of the worst. I definitely tried to leave out the sort of obvious ones, like obviously, you know, the Nikkie Tutorials Too Faced palette, the Jaclyn Hill Becca, the Second Round palette, like all of those things I just left out. Tried to pick ones that maybe you haven't heard about that we could discuss and talk about. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Today's candle of the day is from 228 Grant Street Candle Co. This was featured in my Black Owned Business haul. This is their candle of the month for last month. They have a new one this month that I've just ordered. So hopefully I'll be able to feature a candle of the month from them every month, but really love the brand. I'll link them down below. And also, before we jump into it, today's video actually has a sponsor. Woo! I actually have their case right here. This case, I'm not kidding. I bought this case because I got a new phone and I had cases that they had sent me, but they were from my old phone. So yeah, genuinely really love the cases, but let's roll the ad. Today's video is sponsored by Casetify. You guys know that I've worked with Casetify a couple of times now, and truly their cases have become some of my absolute favorites. I actually got a new phone and immediately went and bought one of their new cases from the newest collection with my own money, just because I genuinely love the cases so much. One of the things I love the most about Casetify is that it's kind of got that best of both worlds thing where the phone cases come in a ton of different styles and prints and patterns. I'm particularly fond of this cow print one. I think that is adorable. But it has a ton of different styles and options, but they're also slim and incredibly protective for your phone. Their impact cases are engineered and constructed with Chi-Tech, which is basically just this really strong material that makes sure your phone stays safe. And they are drop test approved for up to 6.6 feet, which is pretty fantastic. I also really love that the cases are antimicrobial, which keeps them germ free and kills about 99% of bacteria. And also they're made of recycled plastic, so you can feel really good about having a cute, adorable phone case. Also love that they have the option to fully customize your phone case. I have a bunch now that have like my monogram or my name, and it's always just a super cute personalized touch. If you're interested in trying a Casetify case, you can go to casetify.com/smokyglow today and get 20% off your first phone case. I hope you guys will go check them out if you're interested. And yeah, thank you so much to Casetify for the continued support on my channel. Thank you so much again to Casetify for sponsoring this video. Truly love the brand, love the products. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's get right into makeup collabs that suck. Before we really jump in, I'm sorry I've given you like 2 fake starts now. I do want to give a quick disclaimer. I might be talking like crap about some of these collabs and things like that, but I'm not trying to disrespect other people. And also, if I don't like disclaimers, but like if this was your favorite collab ever, that's great. I love that for you. Just because I think it's ugly doesn't mean that you have to think it's ugly or you don't have to like it. Some of you guys know I have my own palette that I made with Kylie Cosmetics. Some of you guys might think that that palette belongs on this list. I personally don't. I love that palette. So obviously it's all subjective. It's all just an opinion. It's all just for fun. So I don't like to give those disclaimers, but I'm gonna give it for this video because I can anticipate the anger. Okay, the first palette I want to talk about is a collaboration that was done with BH Cosmetics with Carly by Belle. Now, I will say, I want to talk about the second palette because the first palette that she came out with BH Cosmetics was so good. Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of like the quality, but I know a lot of people really loved the quality of that palette and really enjoyed the palette in general, the highlighters, the eyeshadows. So even though I personally didn't like it, I wouldn't knock the quality. I don't understand why they basically made the same palette for round 2, except it was bigger, bulkier, and had even less interesting shades than was already in the first palette. Like, I don't understand understand the point of that. Why would they make the second one so eerily similar to the first? Because the first was doing so well. But there wasn't a need to bring in competition with this second palette that looked almost identical, very little changes, except it was kind of uglier. And also, they didn't come out that far apart from what I remember. I feel like I remember the first one and the second one being in stores at the same time, which was like super strange, especially because the first one really was doing so well for them. I would have thought that if they wanted to sort of expand upon that collab, instead of coming out with a palette that was basically the same, I think it would have been really cool to come out with maybe those highlighters that were in the palette as singles, or come out with blushes to complement the highlighters, or come out with like a face palette. That would have been really cool. Something that was in the same vein as the original palette, but was a little bit more different and interesting. That would have been an example of riding the hype that the original Carly by Bell palette had correctly, whereas instead, they launched this. And I'm just so confused by it. It's not the most horrific palette I've ever seen. Like, it's really not that bad in general. It's just compared to the first one, it's obviously the lesser of two. Am I crazy? Did anybody like the second one better? I feel like to me it's so obvious that this is like the lesser of the two palettes that were launched. So yeah, I was not a fan of this second one. I don't understand. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall at the BH Cosmetics headquarter meeting where they greenlit the second version of this palette and like the concept and everything. It's so confusing to me. Speaking of wanting to be a fly on the wall, I would love to have been a fly on the wall when the brand Deck of Scarlet was created, because I feel like we can't talk about influencer collabs without talking about Deck of Scarlet. Now, I'm not sure if this brand still exists. I don't think so. But I remember back in like 2017, 2018, every single small YouTuber I know, everybody within like a 100,000 to 500,000, all of those influencers were getting sent these Deck of Scarlet palettes as like sponsored content. They do whole videos around the Deck of Scarlet palettes, and like, oh my god, was this a horrific time. The whole premise of Deck of Scarlet is that I believe it was every 2 months they would come out with a collaboration palette from a beauty guru, and it would have like a couple of face products, eyeshadow palettes, and a lip product all in one palette. All I can think of when I think of Deck of Scarlet palettes is Claire's palettes, like the Claire's makeup, the all-in-one Claire's palettes. That's really it. And honestly, I don't even really remember who they picked to do collaborations with, because they picked a lot of sort of mid-sized YouTubers, which I actually think that was smart. I think that Deck of Scarlet realized the sort of power that mid-sized small YouTubers held before a lot of other brands did, but I think they utilized that in the wrong way. I think there was a lot of things wrong with this. I think number one, the fact that every single time it had to come in this same format of face products, eyeshadow, lip product, instead of allowing every person to sort of create their own artwork on the front so it was like unique to them, because it was really just this like black packaging. It was very basic, which I'm sure because of the nature of how they were doing things, that had to be done. They needed sort of a sample of everything, but it wouldn't have been too difficult to at least make some sort of customizations to each palette to make them unique to the beauty guru that they were working with. And I also think had they just made this eyeshadow palettes, or even just like face palettes, or just like a lip color, like if they had committed to one instead of trying to squeeze it all into one like all-in-one palette, I think it also would have taken off and done a lot better. I think honestly they just got in the game at the wrong time, because I think that in the era of 2017, 2018 in particular, I think packaging, vibe, aesthetic of a brand was incredibly important. So was formula, but aesthetic was just as important. And when you're seeing all of these makeup collabs come out, you had like the ABH Nicole Guerrero glow kit, which was like this beautiful pink glow kit. You had all of these palette collabs that were happening, like Violet Voss and Laura Lee, which even though it was simple packaging, it was still very much like Laura Lee collab. Like you're seeing all these other collabs happen, and then you have the Deck of Scarlet palettes that have no real personality to them. And I think that was one of the big reasons that they didn't take off or do super well. I also low-key think that the intense sponsorships hurt them, because you never saw people organically mentioning Deck of Scarlet just because they like loved the quality or loved the products. It was really always, when people mentioned Deck of Scarlet, it was pretty much always sponsored content. At least from what I saw, I never saw anybody just raving about the formula in like a favorites video. The only time I ever saw these palettes were in sponsored content, and I think that this was again around the time when there was a lot of distrust in sponsored content, and I think that that made people even more kind of sus about the brand. So I think that was kind of the big downfall, but I don't think this is actually a horrible idea. I think it had been done right. I almost feel like a beauty box that came out like bi-monthly but was like all influencer designed products, but you collaborated with like 3 or 4 small influencers, and like one made lips, one made a face thing, one made a little eyeshadow palette, and everybody put their own spin on it, and it all came in a little box together, like all your favorite creators in one box. I think that would be a really, wait, nobody steal, no, I'm not gonna do it. You can steal it. I think that'd actually be a really fun idea though, having like a bunch of, kind of how ColourPop does it, but I don't really like how ColourPop does it, but they'll collab with a bunch of mid-sized, smaller creators and have them create their own custom bundles. And while I wish they were more original, you know, things, I still like the idea of having a bunch of smaller, mid-sized creators collaborate together and like put all of their effort into one thing. I think that's a really cool concept. So I would definitely say that would have been cooler than something like the Deck of Scarlet thing. The next collaboration I want to talk about is actually with a celebrity. I talked about this briefly in my downfall of Becca Cosmetics video, but I feel like I really have to touch on the fact that the Khloe and Malika BFF collab from Becca is like one of the worst collabs. I hated it so much. I hated it so much. I think the biggest thing for me that was the biggest downfall for this collab was, number one, there was a video of Khloe and Malika like interviewing with Becca talking about the products, and those two had absolutely no idea what they were selling. They didn't have, it was so blatantly clear from that interview that they had absolutely no input on the collection. They had no input on the colors that they chose. They had no input on the products. Like, it was so clear that they showed up to like 2 meetings, signed off on everything, and went about their day. Like, there was no creative process from Khloe or Malika about this collection, which I think is inherently an issue with a lot of celebrity collaborations. Is it's very obvious that the celebrity didn't really have any sort of input on anything. It was kind of created for them and then they just marketed it, which is why I think celebrity collaborations don't do as well as influencer collaborations, but that's a different video. What really got me about this collection was the EXO powder thing that they tried to sell. Came in this little tin, and it was X's and O's, and it was supposed to be like an all-over shimmer body powder, but it just looked like if you were to hold one of them or press on it a little too hard, the X's and O's would just completely shatter. It kind of reminded me of those Lancome pearl things, the pearl like powder or bronzer or whatever. It was like pearls in a little jar, and you just like dust your brush on it and dust it onto your face. That was basically the gist, except instead of pearls, which at least are like a solid shape, it was like very breakable X's and O's. And I do remember that those went on sale very quickly. I think in general, not only did this collab lack a lot of sort of inspiration, but on top of that, the products that were slightly unique, like the X and O powder, really just didn't hit the mark. I also think too, and again, this could be a whole different video, but I think when celebrities try to sell makeup like this, the reason it also doesn't really hit is because I think that celebrities are kind of always selling different things. So stuff like this, a makeup collab, is very easy to get sort of lost in the mix of everything else they're pushing. Like Khloe Kardashian in particular is pushing like her jean clothing line and her new bodysuits, and now she's pushing a tummy tea, and oh yeah, here's my Becca collab as well. So I think on top of not being the most innovative or interesting, it definitely also just kind of flew under the makeup radar, you know? I have not 1, not 2, but 3 Tarte collaborations that I would like to talk about in this video. So we're gonna do a speed round. Tarte Lele Pons. I've already talked about this. It's awful. It's so bad. It's so ugly. The front, I think I talked about this in an ugly makeup palettes video, but it's worth bringing up again. It's so ugly. It's so half-assed and like grotesque. The other two, at least, I do feel like the creators put some input into it and it seems a little bit more on theme, but this Lele Pons collab was a disaster. Like, it was so bad, and I think what makes me mad about it is she probably made so much money off of it, and so did Tarte anyway, because Lele Pons has such a young, impressionable fan base that just like eat everything she does up. So I'm sure they all bought that collection and that palette without even really thinking about it, just because it said Lele Pons on it. But it literally looked like the palette was made in Photoshop the night before launch. And in general, the colors were uninspired and pretty ugly. And the names were so silly. Normally I don't pick on names too much because I think especially in influencer collabs, the names are kind of supposed to be inside jokes. But I think it was Tom Hollick. He did a really funny video, I'll link it down below, just absolutely roasting the Lele Pons palette, and I think he was spot on with every single critique. So next we have the Tarte Adeline Morin collab. So I think the thing that got me about this collab is, number one, it's covered in like lemons, right? Which is fine because her whole thing, Adeline Morin's whole thing is that she likes the color yellow. It's been her whole thing. That was actually the first time I ever found her was through a Mr. Kate video where they painted her entire bedroom just this bright yellow. And it was her like talking about how much she loves the color yellow. And honestly, yellow's a great color. Like, I get it. But that was like the whole point of this Tarte palette was yellow, right? The whole palette's yellow. And Adeline, what kills me about this is Tarte helped Adeline create a music, like a new song and a music video in order to promote this palette, the Tarte palette. The Tarte palette is mentioned in the song. The song is called Yellow. If you haven't watched the music video, it's honestly not very good, but it's funny. Like, it's a funny music video. It's not bad. It's a little cringy, but it's not like horrible, right? It's like, yellow, feels warmer when I see the color yellow. And she performed it at her Tarte opening event. She like performed this yellow song. Literally the whole song is just about liking the color yellow, okay? So you're thinking, oh my God, yellow, this can be a yellow palette from Tarte. And also at the time, that would have been so on trend. You open the palette, it's a warm tone with 2 yellows. Not even like a yellow toned blush as well. Like, not even like something that would have been a little bit more orangey or yellow in tone, like something a little different. No, we have a peachy pink blush, not a yellow tinted highlighter. No. Just like a whitey silver highlighter. And then we have one honeybee colored yellow and 1 sparkly yellow, and the rest warm tone neutrals. Why? Because it's Tarte Cosmetics. I could not believe that they did all of that promotion, like everything. I was expecting something like the ColourPop, the yellow, was it the Honey palette, or like the Midas Cosmetics Lemonade palette. Like, I was expecting a yellow palette from Adeline Morin. Like, that would have been so on trend. I think it actually would have done so well for Tarte because it would have been great. And then they gave us warm tone neutrals. They literally made a song called Yellow to promote the palette. Why? Why did you do that if you weren't gonna make a yellow eyeshadow palette? I don't know. It doesn't matter, but like, that was so ridiculous to me. I was like, guys, why would you not make the fucking yellow eye? There was more yellow and color in the music video than in the freaking palette. Anyway, finally, this one, okay. I want to talk about the Pretty Basic collab that came out. It was Alicia Marie and Remy Ashton, and it's the Tarte collab for Pretty Basic. It's basically a cool toned palette. There's like 6 eyeshadow shades and then the 2 like face palette shades. And it comes in a little set. You can get like a mini mascara, how Tarte does it, you know. I think I was just really disappointed in this palette because first of all, I like both Remy and Alicia a lot. And I feel like they could have done something really cool. Like, I feel like especially Remy has really, that's how I found her actually, it was her makeup videos. So I really expected more, I think, from Remy especially. And not that I don't think that palette is colors that she herself would like use, because I do think that palette does a good job at representing kind of the makeup looks that maybe they would do in a day-to-day look. But I think I just would have expected like a little bit more from that whole collab. Like, I feel like both of them have a good enough sort of understanding of the makeup world, and both of them go on so many like makeup brand trips and they're on all the makeup PR lists that it's like you would almost expect them to sort of have a better understanding of like where the market is going, which is not just like another cool toned palette. I think also, yet again, I was just really disappointed in the packaging because, again, this really looks like it was just made in Photoshop the night before. And I think that's what gets me, is because I watch Remy and Alicia's content. I know that they're more creative than this. And especially Alicia. Remy, I expected more with the makeup, and Alicia, I expected more with sort of the concept and design and things like that. Because I feel like they're both actually very creative people. And I think that is more what is like weird about this palette. It's just how painfully dull it is on all fronts, when I think both of those girls could have done something like way cooler and more interesting. Okay, next I want to talk about ColourPop. ColourPop obviously does like a ton of collaborations with people, with like entities. I would argue the palette that I was the most upset about whereas like they had so much potential and they just dropped the ball. I feel like if you've been watching for a minute, you know what I'm gonna say. The ColourPop Candyland collection was it was an abomination. Not only was I so excited, I was on their PR list at the time, so I was so excited to get that freaking little Candyland board. They were sending this huge box. It was like a real proper PR package, which was so exciting for me. I think I still have it. I still have the box because I use it to store stuff. I was so excited for this Candyland collection. Candyland was one of my like favorite games growing up. I was all about it. I was so hyped. That not only was the quality of that palette horrific, and I have talked ad nauseum about how horrific the quality of the eyeshadow palette was. Not only that, like the actual colors inside and the way that they did everything just could have been done so much better, especially that palette. The fact that they had all of these little pastel-y colors that all had like tiny little speckles of shimmer in it, instead of, when I think of Candyland, I think of like vibrant, bright. I don't even really think of pastels. I think of like bright reds because it's like candy canes, like candy. Isn't there the candy cane forest that you have to go through? I think of like bright blue, deep purples. Like Candyland to me is so vibrant and colorful and fun. And for them to put out something that not only performed so poorly, but also the color story was just so bland and like white. It's like they took the Candyland board game colors and they just like whitewashed them. They just made them as pale as humanly possible, and then they were like, all right, good to go, send it out. I hate it. I'm not gonna harp on this too much because I know I talk about this Candyland collection way too much on my channel, but like, oh my god, did that palette just absolutely utterly disappoint me. Also, bonus points to the Hocus Pocus palette. They really, again, just dropped the ball on that Hocus Pocus palette. I feel like it could have been so Halloween-y, like so cool and witchy and all of those things. I'm not even a big Hocus Pocus fan, but I knew the built-in audience that they would have for a palette like that. Like that was a genius. The outer packaging was so cool and fun with the little characters. Like I loved everything about that. And then they actually released the color story and it was so disappointing. It's just so boring and bland and there's no risk. And I think that's kind of what gets me about ColourPop sometimes is like they have the means to take a risk every now and again because they make so many freaking palettes. Like they can do a risk occasionally and make a little bit less product and it's still probably going to do really well for them because of the concept. I think people would actually appreciate the risk from them. But at this point, all of their palettes are either incredibly whitewashed and pale or they really just lack originality. And those two palettes are no exception. I really want to talk about the Kylie Cosmetics Kendall Jenner collab. Mostly I want to talk about the eyeshadow palette. I actually didn't hate the Kendall Jenner collection in terms of some of the other products that they made. I thought it was actually pretty on trend for Kendall because she does a lot of that like no makeup sort of look. So I actually thought they did some like gloss things, which I heard were horrible, but the concept at least, like they did these glosses, whatever. I don't understand why they even made an eyeshadow palette, or if they were gonna make one, why they wouldn't make like a quad with 4 browns, because that is the only eyeshadow I have ever seen Kendall Jenner wear in her day-to-day life. She is not walking around wearing that palette. You can't convince me that she's even used that palette past the promo shoots for the palette. Kendall Jenner is not waking up in the morning and putting on orange and neon green eyeshadow and like purple. The girl, she doesn't even wear freaking makeup like at all. It's so confusing to me why one of the most colorful palettes that they put together for Kylie Cosmetics, like literally ever, why it was in collaboration with the one who was never seen wearing makeup. That's like her one thing that everybody talks about with her being a Kardashian Jenner is that she's like the one that doesn't wear makeup. She's like the natural one. So why would you give her the neon colorful eyeshadows? I remember I talked about this in a Y'all Surpass and somebody was like, well, I think they're trying to portray Kendall when she's on a runway. Have you ever seen her wear neon green eyeshadow on a runway? Pull me up a picture. She's usually looks like she has a black eye on a runway. She usually is just covered in black kohl eyeliner and like that's her look. So I'm not really buying that either. I don't understand. If anything, I feel like the Pretty Basic palette that I talked about should have been the Kendall Jenner palette, and the Kendall Jenner palette should have been the Pretty Basic palette. Like, it's so confusing to me why they gave this. And the thing that kills me about it is she's done collabs with all of her other sisters who would have been like way more fitting to do a palette like that, to do a palette with color. Khloe Kardashian wears color on her eyeshadows all the time. So does Kourtney. Like, they both wear color all the time, but for whatever reason, she gave the brightest and most, I wouldn't even call it interesting because it was kind of random and like a weird color story, but it was interesting enough for Kylie Cosmetics. She gave that collab to the sister who doesn't wear makeup. It was a choice. The final thing I would like to talk about, and this wasn't a collab per se, but this was definitely dumb, and that was when Benefit Cosmetics tried to convince us to buy their like cult classic items just because the outer box packaging had Manny MUA, Laura Lee, Jeffree Star, Nicole Guerrero, and I think it was Desi Perkins on the front. Here was my thing with this. Okay, so the actual product you were buying was quite literally the same product that you could always buy from Benefit. Like, there was no difference. It was like the Hoola Bronzer, the Professional, the Benefit Roller Lash. Like, there was literally no difference in the actual product. However, it had this limited edition packaging that had all of their faces on it. It wasn't even like the product had their faces on it. It was the box that the product came in. And I remember people being like, oh, this is limited edition, so if you want to buy a backup of your product, you better go buy it. Do you know how long those Hoola bronzers lasted? You didn't need to be buying a backup just because it had like Jeffree Star's face on it. I remember seeing people online being like, well, I just bought a roller lash, but I'm gonna go buy another one because it has Laura Lee on it. And I was like, what is Benefit doing? How is Benefit doing this? All they did was have a dope photo shoot. This actually goes really well with, I'm making a video about brand trips right now, and this kind of pairs into that because they took them all on this beautiful trip, had them vlog them taking the photos for Benefit, like taking these beautiful photos that were gonna be on the box. They're all like lounging on a beach or like posing on a beach for the pictures, and it was literally just the box packaging had it, and it was like, well, this is Nicole Guerrero's favorite product from Benefit, so go buy it because her face is on the box that you throw in the trash. I just hated that. Benefit really did some weird stuff. I'm glad that they've stopped, although they didn't really stop because they did that whole big thing for that mascara. They shot a rocket off. Did anybody else watch a Nikki Tutorials documentary when she was at the Benefit launch event and they shot off a rocket and it was like this whole big extra event and it was for a mascara. Just like a mascara. And Nikki's face made me laugh so hard because you can tell that she's trying to be professional and like maintain a relationship with the brand, but she just looks so absolutely over everything. Like, she's like, why did I come to this? It made me laugh so hard. I feel like Benefit really does the most sometimes, and that is a perfect example of like a collab that wasn't even a collab. It's like the laziest form of collab of all time was just literally slapping Jeffree Star's face on a box and saying, go buy it because it's limited edition and it's the limited edition packaging that has Jeffree. It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack with that. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I hope it was funny or interesting. And let me know down below some influencer collabs or celebrity collabs or just collabs in general that you think are like the worst of all time. I would love to know. I love you guys so much. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with some links and information to the rise in Asian hate crimes that has been happening since the start of COVID. Super important. Stay informed, stay involved. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!